And like we geeked out. We had a lot of good comments on it. But then we decided to ask our audiences about money. And we had so much to talk about. We got so many questions, but the most bizarre that triggered nearly everybody is level of transparency and why people don't talk about money. Now, I've got a poll for you, but before we go there, Jared, can you guess yourself without looking at my poll, without looking at anything else? Have you thought about this week? Why don't people talk about money?
Okay, and I was about to open your poll, so I'm glad I didn't do that, and I
Don't
think
do
maybe
that
we'll
yet. I'm
bring it
gonna
up,
pull it up.
and if not, we'll shout it out. There'll
I'll
be
do
a
it now.
link in in the episode notes to go see it also, so you can check in. I think people don't talk about things they don't know about. And as you get older in life, you start to like lose curiosity. Like think back to when you were 18, you could hop in conversations about everything because you could just kind of be 18 about it. But once you hit 30
Ah,
years old, and I'm using this as just like a weird metric,
sure.
you go to and you're at a bar. I'm just going to use a bar. It's a social scene, and you
Yep.
meet someone. You're gonna have about 2 or 3 subjects that they're gonna feel comfortable with probably, and then you're gonna hit something and it's just gonna make them feel uncomfortable. Now this could be anything, right? This
Yeah.
could be when I talk about, for example, I'm a huge soccer fan, and if I not everyone in the United States is excited about soccer. For other people, it could be politics. That could be
Yeah.
super triggering to someone. But I
Yeah.
think no matter whether you're a fan of sports or you're into politics, the one thing that really is the under it holds up society because we live in a capitalist society is money. And so like you said on the first episode, it's crazy that we have this thing that people work 40 hours a week for 160 hours a month, but then they never talk about it. They're just like
Yeah.
bringing it in, they're paying their bills, and somewhere in there, we know, and we're going to use the United States probably as an example,
Yeah.
people are doing this wrong because they're probably spending more than they have. They're probably using credit cards. And so there's a lot of feeling of like probably guilt and shame, which then there's like, I haven't looked into this enough, but maybe I should. So it's probably
Mm.
being ignorant about the topic and then not feeling empowered to talk upon it. That would be like
Yeah.
that's my lived experience when I talk about money with people. You can just see people kind of shut down and then I'll just change it and bring it back to something that's like, a little bit more
Nicer.
comfortable. Yeah,
What's your
less like,
favorite ice cream, Sarah? Yeah.
yeah, instead of being like, like, what's your financial freedom goal? It's like, oh, okay, yeah, tell me about your favorite Netflix show. There we go. We're back on solid ground. Everyone feels good. That's where they
Yeah.
can play. So yeah, I would say because they don't know enough, therefore they don't feel empowered to have an honest opinion about it.
Why people don't talk about finances. Everyone, a lot of the responses we got, and I'm gonna bring this poll up very briefly. A lot of the responses we got are like, because it's taboo. And I'm literally asking, okay, the question I'm asking is, why is it taboo? And we're realizing that it's taboo, and there's a lot of reasons, but I would have guessed it's because people realize they're underperforming what they think they should be doing. And what they think they should be doing is like doing good for the average person, the average American, the average European, wherever you're at. Everyone has a picture in their mind of how well they should be doing. And on top of that, what makes matters worse, they've been hyping that that is the standard. This is what things should be. Meanwhile, they know that behind closed doors, they're not. Now, young people love to challenge the taboo. You and I talked a little bit about this video going around. Can you tell the video going around or re-synopsis, or maybe we'll put the video up here of the police officer that was encountering a young buck, and the young buck was saying what? Can you recount this?
Yeah, sure. I and we talked about, and this is just one of the more fascinating things. So there was a young kid. When you look at him, you're probably saying 22 to 25, somewhere in there. Just started his career, has finally got a little cash flow coming in. Good on him, great. And I believe it's in New York City, so please correct me if I'm wrong. And the kid's saying to the police officer, basically, there's a lot of elitism here, right? There's a lot of ego here. Like basically, my, big bank take little bank. I make up so much money, you can't tell me what to do. You're just a police officer. So the police officer doesn't really like. He kind of is like, okay, whatever, kid. Like you're a little kid, and he just takes out his phone as I have here. He's just "Tit, tit, 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 tit," and then he shows him his Bank of America, and he has like 500K sitting in an account. Like, who has
Yeah.
500K liquid, right? Like, we will get into how that should probably be invested, and or maybe that's his cash on hand because he does have invested 3 million. We do not know. That's the
Don't
thing
know.
about money, and especially in society, you should never judge anyone and assume you know anyone's financial standing,
Yeah.
because You don't, and so
Yeah.
that was going around, and I just thought that was kinda fascinating because
Yeah.
there's actually a music video, and I will link it in the episode below, but it's from
Okay.
an artist I really like, and throughout the music video, he's walking on, I think, like, Santa Monica Pier,
Okay.
and I'm not sure if it's his son, but could be his little brother, it could be his son, and, could be his nephew, you're not really sure, but you know that they have a tight bond, and while they're walking on the pier, it reminded me of this video. Everyone has like the amount of money, their net worth over their
Oh,
head,
cool.
and it's like The Sims. And so
Very
he
cool.
goes and like he does something with like a street performer. He gets a dollar, the kid, and then all of a sudden it
Mhm.
shows on his head like a dollar.
Yeah.
And you're walking by, and there's like a group of young girls, and it's like negative 80,000 probably student debt. You
Yep.
know, the other one's like negative 200,000, probably
Yep.
student debt, maybe some credit card debt. And then the other one's like plus 30,000. It's a very interesting idea. But since we don't live in that hypothetical world,
Yeah.
I think this kid, and we'll go back to the clip, clearly he got out over his skis, you know, and he looked like a fool. And
Got out
I
oh, I've never
just,
heard this
you
metaphor.
know,
This is a New England
yeah.
thing, got out over his skis, and I think to take it further, I think to make matters worse for this poor young man, is he was caught up in the moment as we all did in our teens, and I think he was even accusing this guy of being a brokey because he was working as a police officer, which is seen at almost like teachers, they're municipal workers. We forget that for all the negative stories out there, a police force, a healthy, mature, hopefully responsible police force is what keeps a society civil. And this person is a civil servant. Obviously, he doesn't need the job, apparently, but this kid is calling him a brokey, gets out in front of his skis, like you said, and is shown quite in the moment. And I think the police officer takes it one step further and says, "Show me your account. Show me your account right now."
That's right. That's right.
And the kid freezes. And that moment that the kid freezes is the moment I want to capture. I believe this is why most people don't talk about money. Let's bring up the graphic. So here we have the graphic. This was a tweet. I posted out to my Twitter audience, and I think I left it up there. I'm pretty sure it was Twitter. Was it Twitter or Facebook? I forget
I
now.
think you did it on both, but I think it really struck a chord on Facebook more than Twitter. Twitter's algorithm is also a disaster these days. We won't get into that, but
You
it
are
really hit a
completely
chord on
correct.
Facebook because you got some good engagement here.
I did. And so Jarrett pointed out that afraid of being judged and afraid of looking stupid go hand in hand. Most people chose don't understand money. Now, I Jared said there's a flaw, and you know what? Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, you're probably right. Afraid of being judged and afraid of looking stupid are similar for the purposes of what we're talking about now. But I think when asked in an anonymous poll, the winner is don't understand money. I think the first two are the fruit of the third.
Yeah, and if you just assume the first 2 are very similar, then it makes sense because it's split 50-50,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So and you're totally right. The first 2 lead people, I guess well, actually, unpack that more. What do you mean they're the fruit of the third?
So if you don't understand a thing, a particular topic, if I don't understand soccer and I suddenly find myself in, having a pint in northern UK and suddenly these guys are talking about football and they're talking about football and they're talking about this score or this nuance, I'm not going to speak up because I don't want to look stupid and I don't want to be judged. But these are a fruit of the fact that I don't understand it. I don't understand tackle ball. Why do people collide other than the earnings they could get from throwing themselves around and the advertising? I don't get what the participants in the stadium enjoy at all about this. And so I don't have an understanding of it. Therefore, I if asked about it, I look stupid. So what don't I do? I don't bring this up at dinner. I don't bring this up around my friends or my nieces and my nephews. I don't wanna be judged, and that's a little bit different. There is a nuance between looking stupid and being judged. I know how to bring a topic up and not be stupid. I could bring a topic up and go, "I don't know anything about this, but I have some questions." Okay, done. I don't look stupid anymore, but I still might be judged. And
That's
you
a
see this.
really
Go
good
ahead.
point.
Go ahead.
Sorry to cut you off. It's a really good point. What you're saying there is if you look at something like I think right now for me, this new thing is AI. You and I, we also have Not Crypto Bros. Shout that out. You should check out our live show where we do talk about cryptocurrency and really how that plays into our own financial freedom journeys. And now there's this new thing, not this new thing, it's been around for a long time, but it's really coming to like Main Street, I guess I should say, and that's AI. And I'm not very fluent on AI, but the one thing I can do is be curious for freaking days. I will ask anyone who knows about it 1,000 questions. And I think that that's really important because it goes to that being judged and looking stupid. It kind of goes back to what I was saying too earlier, where like people lose their curiosity. If you're not
Yeah.
curious about something you don't know about, you're never, ever going to be able to learn because you're never gonna ask the right questions.
Yeah.
So even if you in that pub in UK and we're sitting there and I am very soccer fluent, you could sit there and ask really good questions. You could actually probably ask better questions
Yes.
to other people sitting at the bar than I could because there are so many things for me that would be self-evident for a lack of better terms. So I think
Yeah.
that that's key when you're talking about money. If people aren't curious about money, and that for me speaks to my own experience, and I'll leave my
Mhm.
Medium article here in the episode
Yes.
notes that I constantly talk about because really it was in 2015, and this goes back to the episode one. If you're interested to go hear us talk about how we define financial freedom, but it was in 2015 where a set amount of things happened, and they just led me to say, "Wait, what's going on here?
Yeah.
How can not so many, how can some people have so much money that they can just give it away?" And that
Yeah.
started me down a bunch of different questions. So I think curiosity is key to understanding money, or to being
Mhm.
able to talk about money. And so I didn't think we were going to go there on this episode. But Grant, if someone comes to you though, and I think that this is a really important thing about curiosity because so much of growing and self development is learning how to learn. It's
Yes.
and that sounds really, like, meta, but if someone comes to you and they're like, "Grant, I hear you on this show, Friday Finances TV. I know that you are a small business owner. I know that you are on your financial freedom path. I wanna get into this." So this is kind of me, I guess, being curious, but what are the questions I should be asking to understand money? How would you answer that? Like 2 or 3 questions that you would tell someone else that they should look into so they can understand money.
It might be cliche to some of my questions, but I think a lot of people are trying to take shortcuts and jump the gun. One of the answers we asked is, "What's one thing you wanted about money last week? What's one thing you want to know about money?" And one gal that I know personally, she's a business owner and entrepreneur. She's a great gal. She said, 10, "How to 10x your money?" And my response was, "That's great. You need to be having big goals and dreams, but do you know how to 1.5x your money?" Everyone wants to 10x things, and that's exponential growth. But what people don't actually even know how to do is accretive growth, and accretive growth is incremental growth. They want exponential, but they don't even know how to do incremental. And so I know that my answer to your question of what are my top 3 questions or top 2 or 3 things I think people should ask is, do you understand money? Is one question. Honestly, understand money. The other is, do you know what multiple streams of income are available to you? That pricks the phrase multiple streams of income. It's one of the top books on my shelf. It's right there, multiple streams of income. I read this over and over again. There is only 4 ways to make money. 4 industries or categories of money making. Now, within each, there's nuances, but most people only know of one, really, earned income, and they make up what they think the others are. And they think being an influencer is a way to make money. You and I know, actually, it's not. Being an influencer is only marketing. It's not conversion. So now a lot of platforms make this easier, but like they don't understand the business model. So the second thing I'd say is, do you know the multiple streams of income available to you? The first was,
You
you
know what
understand
streams are
how
available.
money works and like how it actually flows. And this is my third, hands down, Robert Kiyosaki's financial statements. By financial statements, I simply mean this. Do you know what a balance sheet is? Do you know what qualifies on that balance sheet as an asset or liability? And then on an income statement, do you know what is income and what is do you just know what they are? I'm not even talking about budgets yet. I'm not even talking about expenses yet and modifying it. I'm literally saying, do you just know what they are? Now, I have a spreadsheet like my Patreon and some of my Spark citizens. They've been paying me for a while now for access to like Google Sheets and things like that, where every single month you're supposed to report. Do you know how you're trending? Well, I know the headlines say that I'm going to get fired, so it doesn't look so hot. Man, you have a very limited understanding of money, how it flows, your financial statements, but you could be actually doing better and not even know. You know? Well, inflation's horrible, so I know my expenses are going up. Man, that's one element on the dashboard of your finances. So I'd say, do you know how money works? Do you know what multiple streams of income are available to you? And do you know what financial statements are and how you're sit right now? That should make a lot of people go, no, then go pull up ChatGPT and ask it, what's a financial statement? What's a balance sheet? What's an income statement? What are multiple streams of income? And just gaining that vocabulary. Robert Kiyosaki said, financial, it's not even financial literacy. It is, that's the net result. It's just the vocab. If I just had the vocab, I could walk in it. So I'd say those are my top three starting points. And then the world opens up to like, there are worlds within worlds once you have that vocab. Once you have that vocab, you start unpacking a lot of nuance from there. But I would say this, when you mentioned something that I think needs to be called out, I wanna bring up this post real quick, and then I wanna ask you this question, um, real quick. This was an answer to one of this by, she's been a client and a local friend, a realtor, Kelly Fain. She's phenomenal. They have several businesses, and she says this, "A couple reasons people don't talk about money. A, there's a cultural taboo. That's what we're talking about right now. If you don't have money and it feels like you never will, why talk about something that feels outside of your control? And all the reason we're talking about this is so that you return to a state of feeling in control. If you do have money and others don't, it feels like bragging. I would add one more to this. If you do have money, you might feel that someone talking about money is trying to take it from you. There's a scarcity mind. Someone actually posted that, as another response. Oh, here we go, right here. My answer and experience would be that most people wanting to talk about it are the same people trying to take it. So before we go too far in that, you mentioned something to me that was profound to me. You mentioned that you and your dad never talked about money until you started investing. Now, without attacking your dad, we love your dad. Without talking about negatively about any of this, what dynamics do you think were in play that prevented early conversations and then, or said a different way, that suddenly opened up the floodgates once you started investing?
Yeah, great question. And I think this just goes back to everything we've talked about today. Why don't people talk about money? Well, I wasn't interested in money. Therefore, I wasn't learning about money and I wasn't curious about money up until the time, and this is just full admission here, up until the time. So 26, 27, 28. I was still under the mindset that money is a dirty thing, or money is something that I just don't want to have to deal with, or money is something that I just wish we lived in a world without money, and I just don't know why we can't get along. My past is a very much of a hippie, and I'm still very much of a hippie today, at least my mindset. And I was in the Peace Corps for 3 years.
Yep.
You know, I lived on nothing, and I lived in communities where people didn't have, I guess you could say, material things.
And they
Had what a
often
lot of Yeah,
oh,
but they
sorry.
had what a lot of people but they had what a lot of people in, quote, "developed world" don't have, which is happiness. And so it just kind of shifted the way I thought about it, and then I went to grad school and I had all this debt and I just didn't wanna think about it, you know? I think what Kelly says is totally right, you know, if you don't have money and it feels like you never will, why would you wanna talk about it? And having 6 figures of student debt, I was like, "There's no way out. How am I gonna get out of this?" You know? Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm a millennial. Oh, I got crushed by the boomers and Gen X before me." And, oh, it's just, you know, a lot of, what's the word I'm looking for when you just
Animosity towards capital.
well, animosity towards maybe the system, feeling like screw the system, something like that, but also the victimhood. You know, the system is
Yeah.
playing it on me. Like it has it out for me as a millennial. I'm just trying to get a better education because I want to get my master's in international affairs and I wanted to
Yeah.
work in global development. You know, trying to solve the
Mhm.
problems of the day. And so I
Mhm.
think it was that, and so I don't think my father and I spoke about it because I wasn't empowered enough. I wasn't curious enough. It was on me. It has nothing to do with him. He was ready to talk about it. I wasn't ready. And I think that that's a really
Interesting.
important thing when you talk about money, and this is why people don't talk about money. And if any of my friends are listening that are in relationships, they may be in a similar situation that my father and I were, where one of them is ready to talk about money. The
Yes.
other one just hasn't found that season of life. And
Yeah.
when they do, and I know you and your wife are probably more, you know, money aligned, then I just think things are different and there's going
Yeah.
to be a lot more friction when things aren't aligned. So for me,
Yeah.
it was totally that I wasn't ready to have the conversation. Once I was, He was totally like, "Yeah, okay, let's do this." And I realized that a lot of the way that I spend money and I save money or I don't spend money or how I think about money was obviously influenced by what he did, never what he told me, which I think is
Interesting.
a very, very important
Yep.
thing. We often in life in general, we latch on to habits that we see, not just the ones
Yeah.
that we hear.
Yeah.
If you see someone that is just not going out on Friday evenings and not going out on Saturday evenings, and you're always inviting them to go to the bar, or you're inviting them to go to the picnic on the weekend and the barbecue and the whatever, or you're inviting them to watch the game, or you're inviting them to watch Netflix. And they do this for 2 or 3 years and you don't understand it and you can't but you love this person and they're part of your tribe, they're part of your people. And then that person turns around after about 36 months of doing this because you know what they're doing on that Friday and Saturday? They're literally driving Uber. They work 40 hours a week, Monday through
That's right.
Friday. They get extra money on Saturday and Sunday, and they get about five to $600 every weekend. We'll just say, I'm just going to say that. So in a month, they're going to pull down somewhere around $2,000 to $2,400. And you're like, come
Yep.
on, man, YOLO. We only live once. We need to live now. 36 months go by. And that person turns to you and says, hey, I'm moving to Costa Rica. I'm
Yep.
moving to Colombia. I'm
Yep.
moving to Vietnam. I'm moving to the Philippines and I'm quitting
Yep.
my job. I hope you can come visit me. And you sit there and you're like, what the hell just happened?
That's right.
That to
That's
me
right.
is like
And
the conversations that we don't have.
what you don't count is you don't realize that there's a double spread that's happening. Because not only is that person sitting in an Uber acquiring money by conscious work in this example, you are also out spending, and chances are you're spending $300 to $600 that weekend. Not only did they earn $300 to $600, you spent. If you take yourself in that microcosm in this example, you might only be out 300 or $400. That's what I earned it for. I'm here to spend time, YOLO, right? But this person then moves to Costa Rica or Thailand. I have real world example I want to give in a second. You see them go and you realize the disparity, the gap between me and them was twice what I thought it was because they saved and I spent. So I went down and that was okay. That wasn't that big of a deal. It wasn't that much of a down, but they also went up. And so this gap took off. What was your thought there?
Yeah, my thought before you share your real and I have the same real world example, it changed the way I look at money, was that you, if you're the person that was out partying or basically not doing what the person who was Ubering,
Mhm.
you don't have to ever have spoken about money to have learned an invaluable, priceless lesson about
Priceless.
money.
Yep.
And I feel like that to me is really important because when I think about where people are today, and they've said this to me whenever we talk about money, they say, hey, well, you know what? I am how I am with money because of
Yep.
how my parents were with money. And I
Yep.
think it is the most true thing maybe ever.
Yep.
And so if people were raised in households too, this is like this should be the fourth or fifth one, right? Why don't we talk about money? Oh, because my parents never did, or my grandparents never did, or my siblings never did, or the house where I was
Yeah.
raised, it was not a topic. And
That's
so
right.
going back to the answer about
Mhm.
why my father and I didn't speak about money till maybe I was in my late 20s was simply I wasn't ready for the conversation. But like I've said, I don't think you have to have conversations with money to allow them to learn valuable lessons. So
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah, I worked for a real estate mentor in 2003, 2004. The guy was a little wealthy when I met him, but I watched him buy a $3 million property, put on a pair of overalls. It was a commercial property with elevators in multiple buildings. I watched him put on some overalls and coveralls, took a clipboard and went inch by inch in this property, got all of the flaws reduced from the purchase price, ended up only spending 400K, bought the property. A hurricane came in. I watched him work the SBA loans, repair this thing. He got something like $2 million to repair it. He ended up only spending because he was Mr. Penny Pincher. He only ended up spending about 500K repairing the properties. He netted the rest, and it was considered quote unquote cheap money. And I was like, that sounds like a scam. And he's like, is it a scam? And he would always challenge me, and I was being super judgy about the whole thing. Then I watched him, and this was about 2 years into working for him. He said, Grant, I hit my number. He changed out of his Walmart outfit. He always wore the same outfit from Walmart, put on a Patek Philippe. I didn't even know what it was at the time. He said, Grant, you see this watch? I didn't know how to pronounce it. I didn't know what it was. He said, this is a $50,000 watch. You see these shoes? These are a $20,000 pair of shoes. He said, why am I wearing this? I was like, I don't even know because he was Mr. Walmart. And I was like, okay. He said, you need to go read The Millionaire Next Door while I'm gone. and he was taking his world trip, and he said, "My first stop is on an around the world cruise. You have to have a certified, accredited investor level, which means you had to be a guaranteed millionaire and make $250,000 a year in income and a bunch of other things going on with that to even be on the cruise. The cruise is free. The cruise was free to these people, but they got on the cruise. He met the director of education for all of China on this cruise, ended up going to China, Beijing, for about 6 months, taught himself Chinese, and got real estate commercial deals there for the Department of Education, the Ministry of Education for China. Started doing commercial real estate. Obviously came back, massively increased his wealth. He would try to talk to me about money. I was not ready to hear it. I still learned an invaluable lesson. I remember he pulled out his wallet once and I was complaining about my pay. And I said, "You got all this going on. Why don't you pay me more?" He said, "Well, people are only paid what they're worth. Go read." Atlas shrugged, he said. I didn't at the time. He said, "Do you think this cash is worth anything?" He opened his wallet. He had C notes all in there. He took it and started literally throwing the money at me. "Take it. Take it. Pick it up off the ground. It's yours. This is debt, and I don't value it at all. You are only worth the money that flows through you, not the money that stays in you." These are lessons that I had not I had a walnut brain for this stuff. But these lessons, they were so embarrassing to me that these lessons stood with me, and then when I started finally, after he and I parted ways, we parted in content if you can imagine, it was a contentious parting because this guy was just, like, all about the money. It's like, "Well, why did you come to mentor with me?" I walked away, I felt really embarrassed at the way this went, and I started reading these books, and it shook me. It shook me how poorly I had been handling myself. It shook me how dishonest I had been with myself about money. It shook me that I was taking this moral high road, that I'm gonna check out of society, I'm gonna be a hippie, and I realized most of my motivations for the hippie minimalist life were because I was trying to find a moral superiority to the fact that I was broke, and I think most people are operating that way, you
That's
know?
totally where I was. That's totally where I was. I just didn't wanna have
Really?
to. I mean, that's yeah, 100%. I mean, you're
Yeah.
trying to get out. How do you get outside of a system that you're trapped in?
Yeah.
You basically push back or try to ignore it. And so if you're a hippie minimalist, then you're
Yeah.
just like, "I don't even need that to survive, man. Look at me," you know? And a lot of people have gone on that journey in their 20s. I know a
I
lot of
agree.
people that have gone on that journey in their 20s.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Let me ask you this for the sake of time. We can't just talk about why people don't talk about money. How can people start talking about money? What's your advice on that, if any?
yeah, and I think you already give really 3 really good examples or 3 questions to kind of ask oneself, and if
Mhm.
I could go with leading questions, I think it's for me, and this is just my framework. If you want to understand money, for me, it was foundational to understand how Bitcoin works. And the only reason what that was because I was able to learn about what hard money is or sound money, because we live in a world of
Interesting.
fiat money. And
Mhm.
that is why when my great aunt went to see the Red Sox, she paid 5 cents to sit in the bleachers. And if I go to see the Red Sox, I pay about $60 to sit in the bleachers.
Mm.
To answer that question, you have to understand sound money, hard money, fiat money, and how that game works and how the Federal Reserve works. That's something that
Mm.
you dive into and it just gets very interesting very, very quick. The
Mm.
other thing that I would say that was foundational for me to learn about money was simply understanding what financial independence retire early community is. It's a really great way to say, okay, what are these people doing? How are people retiring in their 30s or their 40s or their 20s? So these are kind of things that I would
Mm.
say. And if you're looking for books, Saifedean Amos has 2 books. One is called The
Mm.
Bitcoin Standard, which breaks
Yeah.
down what how Bitcoin works, and the other one is the fiat standard, where
Mhm.
Saifedean basically posits, would we want the US dollar if it were a cryptocurrency? That's the overall arching thing. Now that's getting into crypto and it's kind of crazy, but when
Mhm.
you understand crypto, you would realize that if the US dollar were cryptocurrency, you would stay far away from it because it would seem like a scam, right? There's
Mm.
only one thing that can print it. There's
Yeah.
no validator nodes. The supply can be inflated at any time, right? So
Interesting.
I think understanding for me Bitcoin and then
Yeah.
understanding for me what the FIRE, financially independent retire early community was about, and
Yeah.
knowing people in that community really opened my eyes, and it allowed
Yeah.
me to see that short-term discipline
Mhm.
can lead to exponential freedom as far as time and location freedom, which I think are
Yeah.
things that most people like. And if people
Yeah.
say they don't like them, well, then they're lying because most people go on vacation, which is a little taste of time and location freedom.
That's right.
So,
That's right. That's really good. And if I had one more book recommendation, it is the book titled Money: The True Story of a Made Up Thing. And it was a very powerful book to those watching. So parting thoughts. We have a lot to unpack here. And what I'm realizing about this topic of money is it's kind of like sex. I want to bring this up real quick. I have a friend, Tony Salazar, and Tony Salazar said, I say this all the time. The two biggest areas people avoid speaking about is sex and money. And when you see polls, you realize it's the two biggest areas where people feel lack and dissatisfaction in. And then I responded, yes, I like this bridge, but I summarized it. It was this: being able to talk about a thing, in this case, money, leads to being able to mature in communicating about money, which leads to being able to act more mature and healthily in these areas. And I cannot speak about this enough. And the living example of this, we posted Friday Finances last week. I had a cousin who I had a second cousin who I have not talked to in decades. I just thought that there was the family we used to spend a lot of time with on the holidays when I was a kid. And then through family divorces and just life, we stopped seeing this Tennessee family and he went off to be in the military. He's the first person that DM'd me and said, Grant, I love the fact you're talking about it. I don't have anyone to talk about it. I hit certain levels of freedom at 40, and I just worked for the man on a military salary, which is nuts. My point is this: just talking about it openly, kindly, gracefully will attract others willing to talk about it. And I can't tell you how many deals and opportunities have come up just in relationships more than anything. Relationships, because opportunities and deals are actually fruit, in my opinion, of relationships, not money or great ideas. Relationships where people trust you and go, I think you're going to carry water on that. I like it. Let's do a deal. And that comes from a relationship. That happens when you're boldly and kindly willing to talk about a thing competently, in all honesty. So, any parting thoughts for our people, Jared?
no, I just think you're spot on. One of the things I heard the other day that I'm trying to do is A, when I wake up, not look at my phone. That goes into like a deeper psychology and mentality about the world. But in when you do look at your phone, open up and look at your bank account first. Even
Yeah.
if you know exactly what's in there, just start to make that a habit because you're going to be so much
Yeah.
closer to the fire that you want to tend to.
Yeah.
Because going to check social media, unless you're an influencer and that's what you're doing for your full-time job,
Mhm.
you are people's exit liquidity, and that's a fun way, a crypto term to basically saying you are how people are making money. So
Yeah.
why don't you focus on your money, get your
Yeah.
oxygen mask on first, and then you
It's
can go
good.
look at what everyone else is doing to make money off you, which is kind of social media. So I
Yeah.
would say the more you talk about it, exactly what you said. You can't become
Yeah.
fluent in a foreign language unless you practice. So
Yeah. Well, everyone, thank you for being here. This is Friday Finances. I'm sure you're going to have a lot of feedback. I want to hear how you bring up money to people who aren't ready to talk about money. Tell us in the comments below. Please do. You're going to see all of our links down below where we can reference all the books we referenced and all the places you can find us. Please submit your questions, the things you want to know about money, because A, we want to talk about money to immunize us against this taboo, but really, in order to accelerate all of our personal growth in the area of money. Find us on Friday Finances